Welcome to Popternative, where we dive into topical discussions from the worlds of pop culture, social media, and sports. Here is your host, Peter Remoliotis, aka PD Beats.
Hello and welcome to Popternative. This is the talk show and podcast where we have digital discussions, worlds of TV, film, news, lifestyle, pop culture, everything really depending on the guests. We talk about it all. As always, I'm your host, Permiotis. On social media, you know me as PD Beats. Returning guest on Popternative and a lot of really cool things. Most recently, you're going to recognize her from Jupiter's Legacy, which just dropped on Netflix. Jess Salgueiro is back with us. Jess, welcome back to Popternative.
Thank you for having me.
So this is your second time on the show, and then when we get to the third time, if you want to come back, are you part of the Three Timers Club? Do I have to get you anything or something?
I think I am. I hope so. I would love to be.
Absolutely.
Also, I'm currently filming another comic book show, so I feel like it's all in alignment.
Amazing. Jupiter's Legacy, we talked about it before. You were casted for this 2 years ago. Has it hit you that it's finally out there now? It's crazy.
I know. It's so bizarre. It's been the slowest burn ever. But at the same time, I don't know. It's it came out exactly when it was supposed to in some way,
Yeah, absolutely. Now
we're the light at the end of the tunnel,
You've been working on a lot of really cool TV shows and movies as well, but this one is just because how big comic book culture is, this is massive, this is big scale. You know what I mean? It is
big budget, big scale, big story.
So what was it like working on this project compared to other projects? Every project's going to be different, but what can you tell me about this project for you?
Honestly, it was so fun. All my scenes are with my crew and we're
the squad.
And so it was funny because I think I always assumed working on a big budget show that they would, maybe give you less room to play just because of, all the things, the VFX, everything is very specific and thought out, but actually they let us play so much, which was really amazing. The directors were so welcoming and encouraging, and that was such a nice fusion of these very large scale big productions, and then also these moments, giving us time to really create these moments together. And I was surprised at that experience, I think. And yeah, it was just fun. It was fun.
Yeah.
If we in the fall in Toronto in 2019 before the world completely changed. And
a lot of things are shooting in Toronto right now. It's crazy.
Yeah. Oh yeah. The city's busy.
Yeah.
I'm so grateful for it. But yeah, it's all, I don't even
yeah. What is the world these days too, right? There's not an official title for your group. They're saying the Hutchie Gang, the Hutchie Squad. Labored a little bit throughout the show as kind of the villains because of, who the people that you're against are, you know what I mean? A little misunderstood though. I don't think we can 100% classify your gang as the villains. Is that fun to play kind of that misunderstood character a little bit?
For sure. And I think in a way that's what I like about this show, instead of working in the polarities of good and evil, it's we're just kind of misfits. We don't fit into either category. And that's kind of the truth of the world in most cases. I think very few things are clearly, villain, hero. I think we operate a lot in the gray zone in real life. So I really loved that.
Absolutely.
And if anyone's read the comic books, they'd see that Hutch and his crew, we rectify some wrongs in the world.
Yeah, so. Absolutely. It's funny too because people are saying, you and Umberly Gonzalez, the power couple and everything. And it's funny specifically too, it's you and Umberly as kind of storytellers and actors, you're on this Netflix train right now too, right? Like you were just doing tiny pretty things. Now Jupiter, she did Ginny and Georgia. That's pretty cool too to think about.
Oh yeah. No, it's so cool too. I mean, with Umberly, because we didn't really know each other
No,
before the show, but we've always seen each other,
yeah,
actors working in Toronto,
100%.
and have always like observed each other from afar, auditioned against each other, all that stuff. And so it was so great that like, the thing that allowed us to meet each other as, this couple. And that's been really fun. We had so much fun working together.
Absolutely. You're working on a lot of these shows. Obviously, acting is kind of the main thing that you like focusing on. But you get to work with all these amazing minds, these people that are writing and directing and producing. Does it kind of like give you kind of the urge to kind of get behind the camera a little bit more? Does that ever come to mind? Like, obviously, you're an actor, you're a storyteller, but I mean, it must make you a bit curious too, right?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. As soon as you start to see, reference points of people that are doing it the way that maybe you would do it, like
Hmm.
have the same kind of sensibilities. Um, I'm working on a show right now that's completely, women driven. All the directors are women. And having that experience has really opened me up to uh, one day, maybe directing. And that's, again, it's these reference points. It's like, oh, she did it. And she's like, cool and relatable and young or whatever. And maybe I could do it.
Yeah.
So, yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
It's pretty cool too because work is work. You audition, you get certain roles, but for people that have followed your career, you've had this opportunity of playing these amazing, powerful women in a lot of shows and TV. Have you thought about that as well? Like you've played some really like powerful, strong, really cool characters as well, Jess.
Yeah. I mean, I couldn't have asked for, a more kind of aligned career trajectory in that way. Yeah, I'm just grateful. Like I'm like, okay, I do believe, there's some essence in me that lends itself to playing these kind of
Yeah.
not I want to say warrior women, but like, strong and confident people. And it's so helpful for me in my real life,
Hmm.
right? Because I think that's the beauty of being an actor in some ways. Like art imitates life, life imitates art, and I can draw upon my characters too in my real life,
Hmm.
where I'm like, oh yeah, that person just like really followed their gut. Cool.
Yeah.
I can do more of that.
I'm really excited to ask you this question because you are the perfect example of you literally, after what I'm going to say, you've been in like kind of both sides of both worlds of what I'm talking about. So there's obviously TV shows that are like American shows that are shot in Canada, like Jupiter's Legacy, right? But then there's also like Canadian shows that are Canadian that you've been Working Moms, Letterkenny, right? That, get international syndication and deals over the world. What do you think of? Because there is a big difference, right? Like shows like Lock and Key, The Boys, and everything. They're like American but shot in Canada. But like, what do you think our status is now in terms of like Canadians making Canadian content? We've come a long way. Still think there's a lot more room to grow. But like, what do you think about the current status of that right now?
Wow, that is such a good question. Um, I think we've been able to see our comedies, our 30-minute comedies really,
Through the
break
roof.
out, and, Schitt's Creek with all the Emmys, and um
But it took Schitt's
it
Creek a long time though.
it did.
Yeah, I just want to
It
say that
did.
every time people bring up Schitt's Creek, it took them a long time. They'll say it too, right? Like it took them a while. Like it's been a good show for a long time.
Yeah, absolutely. Um I mean, the status now, I think that there is a curiosity, more of a curiosity, I'd say, with like Canadian networks and even streaming services like Netflix has asked for more Canadian content and stuff like that. Um, what's tricky, I think, in terms of seeing something that's Canadian to the scale of Jupiter's Legacy, for example,
Yeah.
I don't know if there's even, a reality like that just because of it's money. Like
Yeah.
it's the market. The American market's just way bigger.
Absolutely.
And um so I think that as Canadians, we have to navigate this interesting space right now where it's like, okay, I don't want to just make a show because for a small budget because it can be made. I want to make a great show. It might require more money. How do I get those resources? Like
Yep.
I have so many friends that are creators right now that are navigating this space, and I know it's tricky and it's frustrating.
Oh yeah.
Because also the people that are often the gatekeepers are still operating, in a way that they'll always default to the states. And
Yep.
so as I think like new blood comes in, like the newer generation of creators, younger producers, I'm very curious to see what gets greenlit
Yeah.
and if people, find the money somewhere. I don't
You
know.
answered that like a champ because you have a lot of friends in the industry. Like that's a tough question for a lot of people. Like a lot of people get very emotional when it comes to that question because there has been that kind of struggle and overcompensation with Canadians in with our content. Like it's a thing.
Oh my gosh, it's so interesting. Like I was just having a conversation yesterday with an American actor that I'm working with, and someone from the crew said something to me like, "Oh, I just saw you on The Expanse or whatever," and she's like, "Wow, I guess you don't have to leave Canada to work." And I said, "Well, not really,
Yeah.
because not at this point, at least I haven't had to." Um, and it was so interesting to talk about how different the experiences, her having been an actor in New York and me being an actor in Toronto, and that I in a way massively benefited from getting to play small roles and like work my career, work up my experience, work up my confidence.
Yep.
And then so now it's like that interesting spot of, will these big shows cast Canadian leads? Like, and I don't know yet. I
We
think
don't know the
it's
answer. Yeah.
like, and yeah, I mean, time will tell. I think COVID casting in that, it's harder to convince an American to come live up here for 6 months and not go home while they film a show. So I think they are kind of looking more at Canadian talent for
Yeah.
bigger roles,
Absolutely.
which is awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's the $1 million question in a lot of circumstances, right? For a wrap up, getting back to Jupiter's Legacy, the obvious answer to this question, it's big scale, it's cool. You hope they enjoy the effects and everything. They hope they watch with their family and friends. Diving deep into it a little bit more because you've been working on this project for a good amount of time. You were casted 2 years ago. When people watch it, what are you hoping they get out of it?
Hmm. Um, I hope that they get how, the world doesn't work in binaries, like kind of what we were talking about before, like that everyone is susceptible to corruption, um, and that as soon as you sort of believe you are the moral compass, I think it gets dangerous. Like you need the diversity of different people and different walks of life to really, you know,
Mhm.
have a full scale understanding of how the world should move forward. And I think especially at this time where everything feels really polarized, it's like kind of a reminder of like, oh yeah, it's not that simple. It's not that clear.
Yeah,
Um, yeah. And then I just hope that they have fun watching it. I think we all
absolutely.
some entertainment. Right?
This show is like huge, just from like the aesthetic. Like it's just this is the big leagues.
Yeah, it's like a Marvel movie.
It's
I love
crazy.
it. So,
It's so cool. Jess, thank you so much for coming on Popternative again. It was great to have you back on the show.
my pleasure. So happy to be here.
So they can watch Jupiter's Legacy now on Netflix. All episodes are streaming because we love that binge culture. And
Yeah.
where can people follow you on social media to keep up to date with everything?
They follow me on Instagram at Jess Salgueiro.
Yep.
Just my name. Yeah, you can find me there.
Amazing. Well, this has been Popternative, youtube.com/Popternative for previous episodes. Until next time, this is Jess Salgueiro and PD Beats signing off.
Thank you for tuning in to Popternative. Make sure to check out our past episodes of Popternative on YouTube. Be sure to like Popternative on Facebook and follow us on Twitter.
This has been an Autograph Communications production.